Hi, uh, I'm Lord deSouza. I'm your Lardis. I want to tell you about my dad. The past 2 weeks have been rather surreal for me and my family. My father's been in the hospital, suffering from a number of conditions, all of which were really just a culmination of old age. He was 81. This past Friday at around 5:30 p.m., he died, surrounded by my mom and my sisters. My brother and I arrived minutes later. It was as peaceful and as holy as a death as could be hoped for. Despite what television shows us, there were no tearful last-minute confessions, there were no reconciliations or regrets. We were as prepared for his death as he was. Yes, there were tears, there still will be tears, but there is joy as well. It's a confusing mix of feelings to deal with. I've never made an issue of my Catholicism, and I'm not going to now. I mention it just to set the context of me and my family and our faith and why we react the way we do to this. I won't change anyone's mind on the existence of God. I'm not here to try. You're not going to change my mind. Let's leave that conversation for another day. I just want to tell you how awesome my family is. My father was the eldest of 10 children, 3 boys, 7 girls, and grew up in Georgetown, Guyana, where he met my mom. They got married, children came along. They had 4 children under the age of 8 and moved to Canada in 1962, and I was born here in 1963. I'm the Canadian of the family. I can't even imagine taking that risk. It was a bad political climate, but he had a good job, and he left for no job but the promise of a better future, and that's astounding. There was some family here in Canada already, but there was little work, and I'm too young to remember those years when he didn't have a decent job, but that changed. My parents worked hard. He got a position with the company, he grew with it, he invested in it, became a partner in the company, helped it grow even more, and raised 5 kids with my mom in, a little semi-detached house that looks tinier every time I visit it. There was some, at heart, Dad was an accountant. That's where he started, and even they gave him different titles, he was still an accountant. He was logical, he was practical, but he could play the guitar and the piano, and he sang beautifully. He and Mom were active in our parish and in the general community, not because some sky god told them, you have to be this, but because it was the right thing to do. It was what good people did, is they participated to make the community better. They participated in the voting and civil service, and just helping their neighbors. And, I mean, my dad couldn't hang a picture. I'm not sure if I ever even saw him change a light bulb, but he wouldn't hesitate to open his hands and our house up to people in need. He once told me he did he was up late doing tax forms for the local seniors. And I went, wow, Dad, you're doing tax forms? That's so great. And he's like, I find them relaxing. He enjoyed them. He enjoyed order and putting things down. And if it happened to help other people, that was great. But he just enjoyed sitting up late with a cigarette, doing the tax forms. Our house became Grand Central Station for the extended family. Family feuds were left at the door because Mom and Dad just didn't play that game, and West Indians love to feud. I always had a couple aunts bickering at each other over something. My parents would have none of it. Not to say that things didn't get loud and boisterous. Most people will tell you to avoid politics and religion, and that's kind of where we started in my house. We would argue over politics, religion, and anything else you might want to throw out, and no one went away angry, or at least not angry for long, and they'd all come back and we'd all flip our positions just to keep the argument going. One of my brothers says deSouza's argue for sport, and I don't think he's wrong. But and there were fights in the family too, just normal growing up fights. I think Dad came out of a hard life with a harsher father. I don't have any real memories of my grandfather. He died when I was 3. All I remember is he was a scary old man. And by all the stories my aunts and my father tells, he was a nasty son of a bitch. That was the time. That was the life. You were harsh with your kids. It was spare the rod, spoil the child, even when they were grown-ups. And, that's what he grew up with. There was also alcoholism in the family. My dad was a near miss. He lost 2 uncles and one of my aunts to the disease of alcoholism. And he has tremendous, booming, thunderous, angry voice. We used to call it his Old Testament voice, where it was hard to face him when he was raising his voice. But I'm sure his artsy children confused the hell out of him. Just as we were confused by him. He never changed a diaper. He never painted a picture. But I can't imagine working in an office or moving to a new continent either, He once told me that he thought I was chasing rainbows by going into art. He didn't like it. Didn't stop me. In fact, he paid for my education. It's what I wanted to do. It was my mistake to make. It was my life to live. It was my triumphs to win. He took pride in my achievements, even when I think they confused him utterly. He never read my webcomic. He liked his computer, but he couldn't use it very well. He knew he wouldn't understand the humor anyhow. Although I'd show him the books, and they had some copies of it, but not really the sort of thing a good Catholic's going to enjoy it. He enjoyed it anyways. He enjoyed it because he saw I was happy and healthy. And, our lives growing up, our experiences separated us, but we shared a life and a faith that brought us together. And all that other stuff was irrelevant. I was his son. He was my dad. That's what mattered. In these final days, the strength my folks saw was amazing. Every day I would visit him in the hospital. Most days I got to visit him in the hospital in the past 2 weeks. And sometimes my older brother, who's retired, or my sister, who is a nurse, would be there. Sometimes it would just be he and I. Sometimes with my mom. And he would drift in and out of sleep because he was so tired from all the different things. It was heart failure, it was lungs, pneumonia, his kidneys began going, and he was on oxygen, and his blood count was low, and it was all that stuff. It was just everything gasping like it was a marathon, but he was still alert, and he would still talk as well as he could, although it was hard to understand him sometimes with the mask on him and the medication, but he was alert. And when he drifted in and out of sleep, we would just talk amongst ourselves, sharing stories, singing with him or to him, and praying. And it was phenomenal because he was still there. He was still had his faculties. He communicated as best he could with a look or with a laugh, or sometimes when he couldn't sing, just a tonal noise or squeezing a hand. And when the time came to move him to palliative care in the hospital, the nurses actually asked to keep him because palliative was crowded anyhow, and they'd become so attached to him. He'd made such an impact in just a couple weeks, even with his illness. They asked to keep him, and they moved him to a larger room so that even though there was another roommate, that we could all gather easier to be with him in the final hours. And at one point he woke up from a dream and said he saw St. Anthony waiting for him. St. Anthony was his favorite saint. If you know anything about the saint, St. Anthony is who you pray to for lost items. So whenever Dad would misplace his keys or something, there's a little rhyme you'd say to St. Anthony, and there would be the keys. So he and St. Anthony were tight. And it's like, St. Anthony found my guitar. He's waiting for me with it. And I have no reason to doubt that. if I'm at all a decent man, my parents are why. They taught me my work ethic. They taught me to take pride and joy in my talents, to love my family and the world, and to love my God. My dad did not have an exceptional life. He wasn't an adventurer. He didn't write any books or cure disease or anything, but he had a great life. It was filled with the love of those around him, his family, the respect of his friends and neighbors, and the blessings of his God. And that's the best life anyone could hope to live. I love him, and my sadness is a selfish one, because I'm only human, that I'm going to miss my dad. But my joy for him stands that he is beyond suffering, and he's with the Lord, and it's an awesome, awesome thing to know. And it's not forever, it's just for now. And I will have him with me even more than when he was alive now. Thank you for letting me share this. Bye, Dad. I love you. Thanks.